So Lou Ann Wallace, thank you so much for joining the We Rise podcast today. So excited to have you. Can you introduce your folks to everyone and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you work with the community?
Sure. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. I swear it is. And these are so fun, and I get to see you and talk to you. But I'm Lou Ann Wallace, and I started in a community of St. Paul, Virginia, about 20-some years ago, and worked on a nonprofit. And that nonprofit was called St. Paul Tomorrow, and it was to build community that also incorporated the elements of environment, community, and the business world. So marrying those three elements together was important to us to begin on the absolute basis of the floor. And then I've moved on to other communities now, but I also was part of the town council at that time. And then I moved on to be in another elected position through Soil and Water, which was my environmental heart. And then I moved on to be a part of the Russell County Board of Supervisors, which District 2 is part of the St. Paul, Castlewood, and Dank, Virginia communities.
Awesome. So you've seen a lot of different ways to work with community, from the nonprofit level to the elected leader level. What are some of the things that have really stood out for you? Now, I know that's a big question, but what are some of the ways that you've engaged in your community that you feel the most proud of over your arc of working in communities, or where you just have said, wow, we just really hit the ball out of the park there?
Well, the ways of engaging people is to bring people into your, what I call your circle. And I'm not saying that you inundate someone with your ideas, but you say, these are things that bother me. Do they bother you? And you find people of like-mindedness. Now, this works all over in the political spectrum and everything, but it really does. I don't know how many people are engaged in their community because everybody sees litter. Let's take that. Mm-hmm. So everybody sees a litter problem, and they call somebody and say, somebody go pick that up. Well, somebody is you. And so when the you, which is me, mm-hmm. and I gather another you and another you, and then that makes power in that community. So that's how I discovered how to work, because it took myself with an idea, going to another person with the same like-mindedness, and we co-created the nonprofit. Then we began to find people that could help us mm-hmm. to continue that movement. And it certainly has caught fire. And because people in Southwest Virginia, I think they really didn't understand that they had the power within themselves to be better and to have more. And I think a lot of people expected the government to come help them. They expected the coal companies to come help them. And they expected large corporations to come help them. And everything stayed the same. So when you take it from the grassroots up, you develop your community, you build your community to look like what you want it to look like. And of course, others around you. This is not a dictatorship. This is a community thing. And so it starts with that.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So it sounds like the process of people understanding that it's not someone else coming to do the work or coming to save them, if you will, but it really starts at the individual level and then working with others to create change. What do you think, Lou, creates that capacity for people to believe in themselves? What creates that capacity for people to feel like things could be different, or that they actually have the knowledge or power to create change? What allows that?
Well, I don't frivolously say compliment people on their abilities. And so when I give a compliment, it is a downright absolute compliment. And people have learned that that's part of my personality. But my mother raised me that way, because frivolous things that people just say offhand, people take it and go on. But when you're really sincere and the people that know you know you're sincere. But the key here is in sincerity, telling people the power that they have, finding that extra talent. We all have something to give. It may not be a large piece of ourselves. It may not be money, because money is not the whole object here. Yes, those are important elements for sure. But until you have that power in that person that you can say, you did a great job today. You have a talent. You can articulate our story. You can do a hands-on. Those are the people you need to find. And I'm going to digress a little bit and go back to a time when I taught elementary school music.
I didn't know that.
And I had a student that I was a sub for a whole year because I had a musical background, but I was not the teacher. I was the substitute teacher. And I had a group of children, 7th grade children, who had to try out for all county choir. And, most of the people know the children who can sing and they've got the power in their voice and they have the power within them to stand before an audience. But a lot of people don't look at the little person standing on the side that could have a wonderful voice. It just was so meek. It didn't have a lot of power to it. But I went up to this little gal and I said, you have a beautiful voice. And I do have an ear for music. And I said, you have a beautiful voice. We need to work on that. That little girl stepped out of the shadows because I saw something in her. And I'm not a great person, but I could see that in her. And I empowered her to stand before the microphone and belt out a song, and she won all county choir.
Oh, that's beautiful, Lou.
It is. Yeah. And these are things that, and I began to see that we need to empower other people. We need to make sure that we empower people. Now, you can take all that I've said, and it comes right back around to the circle of building a community, is empowering people to love their community, work in their community, see the faults of their community, embrace those faults, and try to make them better.
Absolutely. So what would you say to a community who feels like they can't create change? Where the folks who have the wherewithal to be able to say, hey, I see something in you. I see a spark. Let's ignite that and let's get that growing a little bit. What happens when people feel like they don't have folks in their community? How does change happen in communities like that?
Oh, that's a challenge.
It is a challenge.
I take those challenges on. I like those challenges. But remember, I can't go to every community and lift them up, but I would like to try to do that. But anyway, and I think through this, we're going to empower people. We're going to empower communities. And you may not know that you have it in you, but if you just work a little bit at it and try to learn. Now, it's not going to hit you all of a sudden, because I'm sitting here with 20 years worth of backstories. And I've seen it all. I have fought the political system. I have fought everything. And you know me very well that I'm a disruptor to a certain extent. I embrace that, but I want to disrupt in love and not hate.
I love it.
I want to do that. And so, I had to get strong enough in myself to embrace that. Yes. And I have grown a lot since the day that I decided in a cowardly manner that I would reach out and say, I need help. And so that's the video that I'm going to talk about some other folks that I dearly love, the Nature Conservancy. And I reached out to those folks, and that was my first reaching out to an organization saying, come help me. And they're using that story today in their video to get their word out about the community and the resilience that we have developed in the little town of St. Paul. And people say, oh, well, you're working in St. Paul. And I said, well, I can't help that. I live there, but I developed that in a partnership with many people. It's a team. It wasn't just Lou, but it was a lot of us who had found each other and the like-mindedness. Now, going back to your question, I've run a rabbit, and I told you we would. But going back to your main question is, I think that people, when they first decide that there's something wrong with their community. Now, I'm not going to go to somebody's community and say, man, you got problems over here. Mm-hmm. But when those folks begin to reach out, might just be one Lou Wallace, might just be one John Doe, might be just whoever. But when that one person starts to think and reach out and say, man, I think we need to do something about this, there's your spark, because the recognition of the problem is there, or whatever it is. Might just be a tiny little litter problem, and we have to get out and pick up litter on the side of our road in our neighborhood.
Right. Right. So it's that first spark. It's that first connection point. It's the reaching out. And what a beautiful way to frame it. Disrupting in love, not hate, but also it sounds like finding the strength in yourself and the belief in yourself to be able to do that and to stay grounded enough to be able to continue to reach out to other people. So that seems essential. You talked a little bit about St. Paul, Lou Ann. Can you tell us a little bit more about what has helped grow resilience in St. Paul and the broader region? What are those points of resilience that have helped the community and region be strong and to work through challenging times? What does that look like for us? Paint that picture for us.
Wow. Well, to start off with, St. Paul had to change a little mindset, and that happened. But in my opinion, and like I say, this is just mine, in my opinion, you needed to prepare for company coming. And for many years, we all depended on the businesses that depended on the business that depended on the big business. Now, I know that's how it all works too. But what we lost was the entrepreneurial spirit. The entrepreneurial spirit is the teeny little business person like me. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not going to be a millionaire. But that's not the point of it. The point is how you connect in your community and you roll those dollars over and continually build on your community. Now, I'm talking about a little teeny town of less than 1,000 people. And those 1,000 people some are elderly, so they're not going to jump on the bandwagon. They're finished, they're relaxing, they're golfing, they're doing whatever. And then you have a group of people that are so busy working and raising their family that they can't help you very much. And I get that, been there, done that. But there's a section of people in there that are at a point in their life where their children are raised, they're mostly comfortable in their lifestyle, and they're not retired. So they have some extra give back time. And those are the people that I actually plugged into. Now we're 20 years older, 40-ish to 60-ish, and I'm telling my age here, but that's okay. So, we've gone through all that. So that community began to see that we need businesses back, because we were the generation who remembered pre-Walmart. There's a generation that don't have a clue what was before the Walmart. That's fine. Walmart, Target, Costco, all those stores are fine. That's a different generation. But I'm a generation who came from a downtown that was thriving, that people came to downtown. People were on the sidewalks. People were doing business and commerce, and things were good from my standpoint, because we could see business to business. You couldn't find a place to park. You could buy anything you wanted to buy in our little towns all over. This is not just Southwest Virginia, but this is all over. And so there became a time when we all died, and the towns just went away. So we are the generation that could recognize that, and now it's up to us to pass that on. So what we've done is we've taken that model from what I call the 50s and the early 60s possibly, and we have molded that back around. We've come back around to that kind of thinking where small business works. And we don't need huge corporations to come and save us, because that huge corporation, which we have seen several times, time again, and I am not dissing on corporation. Please don't think I'm doing that. Yes, we need all those. But when you're talking about a geographically challenged area, namely the mountains and the valleys, and I call them the hollers. But when you're talking about where I live, I'm not going to get an Amazon of thousands and thousands of people, because I don't have a pool of workers to pull from, one thing, and I don't have a place to plop that down in where I live. You can't stick it on a mountainside.
Yeah.
So with that being said, and coal has gone by the wayside a little bit, we're still mining, and that's fine. But, you know, the thousands of workers are not there. So what we have to do is we have to rethink how we do business. So we have to go back to the days when we were doing business in small towns and attracting people who want to live in a small town and work in a small town. Now, guess what? Because of that 20 years of work, did I see technology abounding like it does today? I know you got technology problems. I got technology problems. COVID has told us we're all got technology problems, right? But the thing about this is it has also, you know, there's a blessing and a curse. There's always, to me, I'm always looking on the positive end anyway. So to me, COVID has shone the light on something that several of us have already been talking about. Light up my mountains. Give me broadband, because I want people to be able to come and live and work where I live and enjoy what I enjoy and cherish what I cherish. The mountains, the river, what we're working on here is making sure that no one is going to take back what we have. Because again, there's a huge building in my town. 350 workers was there at one time, 2 or 3 shifts, a factory type thing. Does it function today? No, it does nothing today. But what we're rethinking here in our communities is about the natural assets that you can't come get my river, you can't come get my mountain, you can't come get some of the amenities that I've got here. So I can play on that. So that's one of the things that we looked at to make sure that we could make an economic impact in the mountains of Southwest Virginia. So that's been a real enlightenment to the communities that are adjacent to all of us in Southwest Virginia. The coal counties, as I call them, we're all embracing this notion of, hey, we can attract, we can be different, and we're rising up.
Beautiful. That's great. So when you look, Lou, at the broader scale of the rising up, what allows other communities to be okay working together? What lets one community, maybe who has historically been competition in the high school football realm, or, you know, where somebody didn't get a job somewhere, so they're not used to working together. What allows communities to work together beyond just the St. Paul scale? And what helps create a sense of belonging, even if you would use that term at the regional scale?
It's communication, it's reaching out, it's reassuring, it's going back to my little 7th grade story about saying, you can do this, and I know you can, because here's the elements that I used, and you can take these same elements and you can use them, which is the same thing that I'm doing in the community of Dayton, Virginia. And man, oh, if you can make a community, a ghost of a community that is a coal camp deep in a holler, if you can make a community come back and feel alive and get a buy-in, that we've gotten a buy-in from these folks that are still left in this community, went from 6,000 plus people to about 300 today, living in tiny little coal camp houses that are still there. But if you can make that happen, you can make it work in any community. You have to give them some information, how you did it. And I went to the community of Dungannon, and I talked, and I told the mayor, so you can do this. I constantly send encouragement up to Jennifer Chumley, the mayor in Cleveland, and say, you know, you got the power to do this. It's difficult. but there are times that you can just inch the needle forward. So when I started in Dane, I'm going to go back to them a little bit, but when I started in Dane, I told them, I said, we're not going to wake up next year and you're going to, boom, have everything that we're talking about in this strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to wake up in 2 years and boom, you're going to have everything in the strategic plan, because what I did learn is there is power in planning.
Mm-hmm.
Too many people want to go, boom, it's there. That's not going to happen, because you got to gradually buy everybody in. You got to bring everybody in. And if that one person says, well, I didn't know that, that's your naysayer. And you need to get that naysayer on board and say, here's the story. Here's the bigger picture. Wait on it. Get in here. Be a part of it. Do what you can do. Give us your talent. Say good things about us. That's another thing. Make everybody know and that what you're doing. Make awareness. And
mm-hmm.
make it positive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. So it sounds like building positive awareness, seeing who is not engaged, who could be engaged, who might be the louder naysayer, but creating a space. I love that, the power in planning. What else? Feel free to head in either direction here. What else really would you say has allowed St. Paul and Dayton, Dungannon, and Cleveland and the broader region to grow and to grow resilience? Or what has held it back? You've talked a little bit about both. Anything else you would add in either direction there?
Well, you're right when you talked about our football teams or whatever, and our communities were competitive. Yes. Counties are competitive. Yes. And you know what? I'm going to say this just to move on, but a tourist, let's say, well, they don't have a clue where my county line is, nor do they care where my county line is.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care where the town of St. Paul's line is, or the town of Dungannon's corporate limits are. They're not looking for that. They're looking for an experience. So when we all figure out that we're all one big unit here, and we have to get over the humps of living in a bubble. And so many years, Southwest Virginia has said it was in a bubble. It's so far from its state capital. Nobody hears our voice down here. Mm. Well, I've got news for a lot of people. I've been a voice that I've gone to my state capital, and I have made myself known to them. And I wanted everybody to know that I'm educated. I live beside of doctors and pharmacists and all kinds of lawyers and all kinds of folks in my neighborhood. And I'm sitting here looking at houses all around me. Life is good here. I choose to live here. And so being professional is one thing, but a lot of people don't realize we're pretty smart. And those of us who are college educated are not any smarter than those that are not, because let me tell you, there's a resilience here, because we were in a bubble, and we had to be our own mechanics and our own insurers and our own bookkeepers and our electricians and our plumbers. We had to be those pieces to us because we couldn't get anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And now that we've opened up a little bit, and you can come and see who we are, because we're a different kind of people here. And what bothers me the most is nobody really realizes that we're such a mixture of immigrants from all over the world that, I have a German, and I also have Portuguese in me. So, and I have American Indian in me. So I have a lot of Irish and a lot of Scottish and Italian. And so those are some elements of all of us here in Southwest Virginia. And we have the same slang as some of our mother countries. We have the same instruments of music, our love of bluegrass. And so we have those particular elements that came and emerged in here, but nobody really knows that, because nobody really wants to come and see us as we really are. They want to come and portray us as something else, but we're not that. And that's fine, because apparently we all like the way we are. We don't care what anybody else thinks. So we have pride in who we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And yes, I do have a twang.
Which is, it seems to me when I think about the folks I work with in communities, it's people who are themselves. That's what draws other community members to them. It's what draws visitors. It's what draws, the community to work together. It's when folks are who they really are and where they say, hey, where can we find places to work together? So, Lou, when you think about, your deep work in community and ways that you're inspiring other folks, what excites you today? What excites you about what's happening in St. Paul or Southwest Virginia or the region? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, well, it's a funny thing. I just had I tell stories, so forgive me, but I just had a doctor's appointment this week, a physical, to see how Lou's doing. And by the way, she's doing fine.
Good.
And so anyway, my doctor is saying, tell me what you've been doing, because he kind of knows a little bit about my background, and I don't tell everybody, but I began to tell him a little bit about the background and what we were doing and some of the things that was happening, and that I get up every morning and I have, it's going to be a fun day. Every morning is going to be a fun day for me. Now, listen, I don't always have fun days, okay? I have crappy days just like everybody else does. But here again, you got to be on the positive side. So I'm telling my doctor about what I'm doing, and he looks at me and he says, I'm not always going to be a doctor. And he's a young man. He says, I don't always intend to be a doctor. But he said, what you're doing is building a legacy that money cannot buy. And people are going to remember this for a while. And he said, I want to be part of something like that. And so I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll pass that along, that I'm building a legacy.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
And so I think that when people realize that we're only here for a short amount of time, I can't stretch my life any more than anybody else can stretch theirs. And money can't buy life. It can't buy health. But, and so that's not what I choose to be striving for. But I choose to be striving to help my community and those in it that might not have the wherewithal to get to where I've gotten to today. So I gotta make sure that path behind me is full of people who have a big heart, extra time, and the want to see something like this through.
Yeah, absolutely. So well said. So Lou, what does that actually look like in St. Paul? How have you started to grow some of those small communities again? What has that looked like more at the nuts and bolts scale of what have been the steps to help? You talked about Dayton going from 6,000 to 300 or St. Paul at, under 1,000 people. What does it take to grow a local economy in St. Paul or Dayton? What are the steps?
Well, you've got to. Now, when I've been preaching all this time about, you don't need money to do this, you don't need money to do that, but that's for me personally, for a person to rise up. You got to find that inside and you got to get past all that. And so, but for a community, that's a little different. So as you're building that person like Lou, that kind of thinking, you need to be building on funding of some sort, because that's what makes the wheels go round and round and round. We all know that. But anyway, what I found out as I worked through the town of St. Paul was that a tiny little bit of funding injected into a project to make that project come to reality was a win. It showed the people around, it brought everybody in together, and people said, wow, that's a win. We like this. Let's do something else. And so we built on that tiny little $10,000. And today I looked at a friend of mine who is now chair of the nonprofit that I formed. I've gone away. I've left all that. I've moved on to another piece. But anyway, I looked at that chair one day and I said, do you remember the time when we said, gosh, if we could only get $10,000, we could do A, B, and C. And I said, now we're going, oh my gosh, if we could just get $1 million, we could do A, B, and C. And now we're going, well, it's going to take $5 million to do A, B, and C.
Right.
So we were excited to get $10,000. And now I know this sounds terrible, but sometimes it takes so much time and effort to write a $10,000 grant that you go, poof, I'm sorry, I'm past that.
Mm-hmm.
But my little community of Date is not past that.
Mm-hmm.
So to them, $10,000, that's a win.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to build your funding.
Mm-hmm.
You have to prove yourself. In other words, you can't lay it on the secretary or the treasurer of the town or the county's desk and say, here you go, you're getting paid to do this. No. The volunteer picks it up. The volunteer learns how to read the programming. The volunteer writes the grant. It may not, the first narrative may not look good and you may fail flat on your face, but you didn't hand it off. You did it yourself. And again, it empowers you. Mm-hmm. There goes that spirit again of bringing you up to a new level. And then you can go for more funding and feel more empowered to do so. Yeah. And so that's how we've done it in St. Paul. We've all had our hand at writing grants. We've all failed at writing grants. And we keep doing it. Another thing that we learned very early on, and you can already tell, and your audience is going to know that Lou has the gift of gab. He can talk about anything. And so that's one of my professional degrees. So you can remember that.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it.
But anyway, one thing that we learned very early on is for your community to be known. So in order for your community to be known, guess what? You got to talk about your community. Mm-hmm. You got to find those people in the funding world who want to hear about your community because they may have some dollars that they want to send to your community. And that's what we've done. Networked with everybody. If I didn't know them, somebody else knew them. And we make sure we introduce each other. And so Southwest Virginia legislators would always have a reception in Richmond once a year. And I had been attending this for 20-some years, wearing different hats at different times, but I always went. Mm-hmm. And my husband would go with me sometimes, and I would say, if you see such and such, you work the room, and here's the list of people I need to see. Mm-hmm. And so I had some people would be looking for me to find someone that I needed to see and talk to. But anyway, a lady looked at me one day and she said, gosh, I love your high heels. And I said, oh, they're my work the room high heels. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, oh, well, I've got tape on my feet. I've got duct tape around my heels and my toes so I don't wear a blister, but I'm going to look good while I'm walking this room. And so I did. And I never sit down. I never eat anything. I never drink anything except a little glass of water to keep my mouth from drying out so bad, but I work the room. Mm-hmm. That's how you do it. So when I brought some more people to the reception, and I won't call names, but you will know them if I would. Mm-hmm. And so I said, we're working the room. So one goes one way, one goes the other, and we're working the room. We don't go stand in a corner and wait on somebody to come to us. We go to them. And that's how you build it. So I've made a long story out of that, but that's how you build your relationships. You seek people out that can help you. And I will also tell you that in my circle of friends, I do tell them straight up, I've added you to my circle of friends and we're friends, but I said, friends ask friends for favors sometimes. Mm-hmm. So don't be surprised if I come ask you for a favor.
Mm-hmm. So they know what to expect.
They laugh and remember it. And I'll call them up and say, it's your time.
So they know Lou's calling. I got to answer. I know what she's going to ask. That's awesome. I love that.
No, you've answered the phone too for me too.
I have, but delighted to. So I love it, Lou. So it sounds like grant funding, getting some seed funding to make something happen, not being afraid to put duct tape on your toes, your heels, because you're going to get blisters, but find a way to meet people and build connections and build relationships and finding those ways to build concentric circles of relationships. And finding ways to really network together. It sounds like you've been really systematic in thinking about what connections do you need to make in order to help St. Paul be known or to build that network and grow it. What are some of the specific, feel free to go in the direction you want to, but I did want to ask, what are some of the specific projects that have really helped move the needle or are catalysts for creating economic resilience in St. Paul? So feel free to head that way or where you were going. Okay.
Well, what I was going to say is basically the same thing is, we're going to go back to when I said, you need a plan. Plan. Get a written plan. Follow the plan. Now, it may go off in different paths sometimes. So just as for instance, when we first wrote our strategic plan, we had a couple of elements that we wanted to do. We wanted to work on a farmer's market. We did. We wanted to work on a boat launch. We did. We wanted to do, I can't remember, the theater. We wanted to revive an old theater. Well, we're still working on that. It's been 20 years. But in the meantime, I did not see a brewing company, a brew pub in the future of St. Paul. None of us saw that. It's not written down in a plan anywhere, but guess what? Along the way, when you start seeing those successes come and those little bitty successes happen, well, things come out of other things and growth happens because of other growths. Absolutely. And so I saw a farmer's market. We saw a festival. We had this festival. We decided we would showcase art. And so we would have a little reception at the little art show for the festival. And so we would have a little wine and a little hors d'oeuvre. Okay. Well, did I see the Baileys, who are now doing the Sugar Hill Brewing Company? Did I see them coming and saying, well, we're going to brew beer? And I don't know anything about craft beer. I don't. That's not my thing. I tasted of it and I said, this is the worst thing I've ever tasted of. And Greg Bailey can tell you I told him that. So, that was just me. Remember, I'm straight up various projects and they grew out of that. We encouraged them. And it was the most exciting thing ever when the big tractor trailer truck came through the little teeny town of St. Paul with those great big stainless steel, I call them vats. I don't know what they are, but they came through town with those things on it. It was like, oh my gosh, it was like the most wonderful thing ever coming to town because it was something we wasn't used to. We didn't see that coming in the plan, but we had a plan. And so we grew out of that. And I don't know what else you asked me because I get off sideways. And
what are some of the things that have really moved the needle in St. Paul or the region? Some of the projects, you've talked about the importance of having a plan, but you've seen these surprises as well. What else has really helped move the needle towards resilience?
Actually, the little coming of the Western Front Hotel. But before that, Spearhead Trails shows up. And they decide that they're going to start an organization. It's going to be state, not state funded necessarily, but it's also a state organization recognized by the state of Virginia, I guess you could say. And so they're going to be riding ATVs on mine lands. Well, they came, several of them came to me when at that time it was before some other people moved into the community that owned the property, some of the property now, but anyway, they came to me saying, do you know how to connect us up? Because we need to connect the trails to St. Paul because we need this to be an economic engine for St. Paul. And I said, well, we're always looking for an economic engine, so let's do it. So we got out and rode around. I got in the car with some folks, rode around, tried to find connections. I knew some landowners. We connected landowners to Spearhead, and we got a connection to St. Paul. That began the whole ATV. That was the first trails in Southwest Virginia, in the Commonwealth, I guess. I don't know where there's any more, but that began 75 miles of trails right straight off for us, and we've added more. And now I'm connecting probably 20, 30 more miles of trails into Dank, Virginia. Well, that's going to give them a shot in the arm because ride from St. Paul to Dank, maybe have lunch there. That's going to create an economic engine for the little community of Dane, Virginia. And other trails have grown in Southwest Virginia because of that. So other people have tagged onto this. They've learned that a campground brings money, selling gas brings money, selling luxury things that cigarettes and lodging and food and all that, beer and wine, whatever your visitor is buying, we're selling it. Mm-hmm. So, and that's good for us because, again, that is adding to our economy and our tax base.
Absolutely.
And it's a show for everyone to see. And then suddenly the hotel kept, the hoteliers and the hotel folks kept seeing around the state as we were all telling our story. I've been invited to several places to tell about St. Paul. Virginia Main Street has hosted me. Virginia Housing has hosted me. Department of Housing and Community Development has hosted me. And so I've been able to tell the story. But at the same time I was telling my story, so was Spearhead telling their story about ATVs. And it looks so fun. Mm-hmm. People are embracing that because they want to enjoy the great outdoors. And we were offering that. So everybody bought into that. But at the same time that story was being told throughout Virginia, the hotel folks was hearing the story. And one day they said, have you ever heard of the town of St. Paul? In one of their meetings. And the other one says, you mean Minnesota? And they said, no, Virginia. And they said, no, we've not heard that, but we're hearing it. So they began to hear it from me and from Spearhead and other people about the town of St. Paul. That brought them into the circle, and they bought into the idea of putting a boutique hotel in St. Paul. And at the same time, we were talking about our wonderful river, and which is where we started. St. Paul de Mara started in the natural world or nature world with the river, because that's where the Nature Conservancy came into being. And for us here in the Clutch Valley program. And so we began to say, well, we need to ride the river. We need outfitters. We need to do this and we need to do this. And people began to step up, and we had a gal say, I'm going to do this. And she won a business challenge, and she started with several canoes and kayaks and tubes, and she doubled her business each year for 3 years, and then she sold it. And the person that owns it today is doing well, except for COVID. But okay, we're going to come out of that. It's a positive thing. We're going to come out of that, and there's going to be a rush on people wanting to get to the great outdoors and get their nature on, I guess.
That's right. That's right. And so where is that today? It sounds like small businesses have started to grow. There's a boutique hotel. What other signs of change are you seeing in St. Paul today?
Well, we've ended up with about 2 outfitters that do guides and outfit you for fishing and hunting and recreating with ATVs. The hotel even rents ATVs. And so we've got 2 coffee shops now, a bakery, a brewery. We have a restaurant in the Western Front, which is currently in hibernation. So they will open back up here this month, actually. Okay. And so that's coming along. And all these elements have come together. And I get calls a lot saying, what are you going to put in that building over there? And I'm like, I'm not putting anything in that building. You're going to put something in that building that will help you.
Turn it back.
That's right. And so now the curiosity is I've gotten 2 or 3 people that reach out to me from Russell County that say, if you ever have an opening for this, this, and this, I think I want to try it. I want to do it. And they're actually all my constituents. Uh-huh. So not everybody lives in St. Paul. My constituents have a business and work in St. Paul and create the economic engine and bring it back over here. So we're all very community oriented. We did have opposing football teams. Yes. St. Paul and Castlewood opposing each other. Yes. Now we're all working together as best we can. And it's difficult at times, but it's working.
Mm-hmm. Great. Beautiful. So seeing those signs of change, the community, working through the football rivalries and school closings and a number of different things, but continuing to work on it. when other folks, so you've talked about some of the lessons learned that you've developed over the years, both in terms of yourself and your own growth. You've talked about some failures and how those failures, it sounds like, have been opportunities for growth. What lessons learned would you offer to others in terms of folks who are trying to create change, or what else would you say to folks? This is key.
Don't give up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, that's a cliche. I guess everybody will say don't give up. But lessons learned, I say when you're given lemons, make lemonade. And that's nothing new in the world today. But I just have grown a lot of what I call leather skin. I may look soft and nice, but I've got some kind of a resilience that probably from my mama. She's 89 years old, and man, she's cantankerous as she can be, but she's her own woman and does her own thing. So I've learned a lot. And I think we need to look back at those folks. We always need to remember where we came from and who we are, and never get past that. Mm-hmm. And so growth comes when you realize where you came from, who you are, how you got there, and how much you appreciate everybody and everything. And you can relate. There's things that happen in your life that you begin to relate to others, and you can be that mission to others. So whenever I've had a problem, I don't care to share that problem that I've had and say, this is how I overcame that, whether it's in a failed grant writing or, the loss of a loved one. You can do all kinds of things to help people rise above. And you have to use that. I think we're given pieces of our life, or given missions in life, and we need to be able to share that, whether it's in our community work, our church work, our social life, or whatever. We need to be able to share pieces of ourselves so that others can grow from that.
Mm-hmm. So well said, Lou. So well said. So as we get ready to wrap up today, is there anything that you wish someone had told you 5 or 10 years ago that I feel like you're the one who's giving people the information and advice that they needed 10 years ago. I've heard a number of people point back to you and say, Lou told me. So you've already offered some of this, Lou. But is there something that you feel like you wish someone would have told you 5 or 10 or 25 years ago when you're starting this work, something that's really made a difference in how you've approached the work of growth and resilience and change?
Well, I'm not saying that I'm the perfect example or anything, but I wish there had been somebody else like me in my community telling me or saying to a group of people, you can do this, this, and this. Doesn't matter where you come from. Stop feeling sorry for yourself that you might be stuck on the farm and you don't want to be stuck on the farm, or telling me that you're down here in a holler somewhere and you don't want to live in a holler. I think Dolly Parton has got it right. She has nailed it. And my salute to her, because she is kind of one of my idols anyway. And but I do wish that other people, and I'm female, and I don't mean to say that the guys have kept me down or anything like that. No, I don't believe in that. I am who I am today because I decided along the way to be who I am today. Mm-hmm. I made myself decide to be who I am today. I took that challenge on and I did it, but nobody challenged me to be that. And I felt like, looking back, I think that if there were more people like me challenging the youth of today and telling them that they can be better and do better. I'm going to run a rabbit a little bit. My daughter and my son-in-law live in our house today because they sold their house. They're in between. And so I only have 2 grandchildren, and they are my delight. So my little granddaughter just became a little teenager, 13 years old. Wow. And I looked at her the other day, and she was kind of walking through the house a little mousy. And I said, you straighten yourself up and you walk like you're a proud woman, because that's what you're going to be. And so my mama did me that way. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing my grandchildren that way. But a lot of people don't say that to their grandchildren or to their children. And I wouldn't necessarily say that to a stranger on the street, but I would use some way to say, you're beautiful. And I think that if you hold yourself proudly and be proud of yourself. And so those are examples that I use in my everyday life of encouraging people. And I wish that I had had more of that. My mother is that, she is it. But I really think that if we'd had more school teachers, and I'm not laying that on a school teacher, but just a strong person, much as I did in that little music class, saying, you got it. Belt it out there. Come on, give it to me. Come on, give it to me. And I just encouraged that. And her mother sent me a private note and thanked me so much. And I don't know where she is today. I haven't heard from her in 30 years, I guess. But, you know, she did win all county. And I keep going back to that because that helped me to grow. That told me that you need to pass it on.
Yeah, beautiful. Seeing that spark, seeing where someone's standing in the corner and in a gentle but firm way, I'm hearing, encouraging someone to say, stand up, you know, be powerful. You are powerful. Stand in that greatness of who you are so that you can help others shine. That's so beautiful.
Yes, in love, in love, in love. And you know what? I think love conquers all. Scripture tells us that it will. And so we need to be in love with each other in all shapes of love. And we need to respect and love. And I think we can get more done. You know, we have an old saying around here that you can draw more bees to honey than you can with vinegar, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So anyway, you need to work on that. And I think that we can take this lesson, and here I go, and take it to the highest level in the country and say, in love, we need to talk. I need to hear my voice. You need to have your voice. But in love, we can all rise up. And that's how we need to do it.
Oh, so beautiful, Lou. So beautiful. Is there anything else you'd like to share with folks as we get ready to wrap up today? Anything else about your work in community or about how to rise up in love together that you'd like to share?
The only thing that I'm going to say is here goes my marketing. So I'm marketing Southwest Virginia. I'm marketing Russell County. I'm marketing the beautiful, beautiful places of my native Southwest Virginia. And I call it my Southwest Virginia. In fact, I fussed at one of the delegates and he now says it. I said, don't say Southwest Virginia because they think we're from West Virginia and they're getting us all mixed up. And I said, I call it the Great Southwest, Virginia's Great Southwest. And I'm proud to be a Virginian. I'm proud to be from the Commonwealth. I know we have issues, but I think that we can work through all these issues. My Southwest Virginia, and I invite everyone to look us up and come and see what we have to offer.
Beautiful. Where would you direct people to learn more?
Oh, you can go to the Heart of Appalachia. Is our 7 Coalfield counties in the city of Norton. That's our tourism authority. They should be able to give everyone the direction to get anywhere in the 7 Coalfield counties.
Wonderful. We'll include links in the show notes of how to reach the Heart of Appalachia Tourism Authority.
And anything on the St. Paul link, we have an Experience Russell, which is our tourism piece of Russell County. And all the counties here, I don't want to leave anybody out because together is us.
That's beautiful. Awesome, Lou. Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
I think I have really, I hope I've given you what you're looking for to help other communities thrive, rise and thrive.
Absolutely. Lou, it's been perfect. Disrupt and love is going to be my new favorite quote. So thank you so much for sharing who you are, your spirit, your love of Southwest Virginia, St. Paul, and the broader region, and how all communities can rise and thrive together. So thank you for joining today, the We Rise podcast.